It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 32, looking at the players of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. This episode is looking at the players of Canada. Part 2, the selections. Here we go. Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccerphiles Canada. I'm Kevin, and this is a continuation of Series 32 on the players of the 2026 World Cup. This episode is part 2 of our coverage of Canada's players. The final roster, I'm excited because it's my country. The final roster is released, and we're looking at the selections for Canada. In part 1, we compiled a list of players and their likelihood of reaching the final squad. We also gave some biographical and career information on the players. That's where we introduced them. If you want to get to know them better, we recommend going back to part 1. In part 2 here, we're just going to basically use names. Our focus is on the selections here, especially the final selections. All right, well, this Mediacast is divided into 3 sections. Section 1 is some preliminary information on the team. I'll just put up a little graphic to guide you through our 3 sections. So some preliminary information on the teams that kind of sets up for Section 2, the main part of the Mediacast, where we look at the selections, the players who did and didn't make the squad, and our prediction of starters. So we're going to use the list that we compiled in part 1 there, go through it again and highlight the players who were selected. We're also going to try to predict the starters, as I said. Looking at the lineups for the 2026 games will help us with that. We hope we kind of saved them. Our research for the player participation went up to the end of 2025. We were saving the March and, well, the June games to help us with the predictions. In Section 3, we're going to start with a spotlight review. So that is a quick run through the main players who made it and didn't make it. So a summary of Section 2 very quickly. And we're also using that as a short version of the Mediacast. We have a couple of other orders of business there. Surprise selections, we will point out, and non-selections, as well as any new players making the final squad. We're going to update on injuries and summarize big players off the squad there as well. Let us jump right into Section 1. Where's my squad graphic there? Hang on a sec. First of all, on the squad, teams are allowed to bring 26 players to the tournament. Canada has 25 players on its roster right now. I'm doing this on June 6th, and they are going to add one more player, presumably. I'll talk about that in Section 2. They did actually produce a preliminary squad, 32 players on the squad. So we're going to cut 6 or 7 of those, and probably it'll be one of those players who will be recalled to make up the 26. Before we move on to Section 2 to see who those players were, let's take a look at the games played in 2026 that we didn't cover in part 1. We're going to skip the January friendly there, and we'll go to the March game. We're not really interested in the results here, truth be told. We're interested in the lineups. But anyway, it was a 2-2 tie with Iceland on March 28th. They played in Canada. They also played Haiti in Canada. Sorry, they did not. They played Tunisia in Canada on March 31st, and that was a 0-0 draw. Their pre-tournament friendlies, truly their warm-up games, were in June 1st. Canada beat Uzbekistan 2-0. I was there. It was right here in our city, Edmonton there. A miserable weather, and now we're becoming famous for miserable weather because we had that World Cup qualifying game with Mexico in the cold in November, and we gave Mexico a torrid time weather-wise here with that. But we fans had to sit through it all as our sacrifice. Anyway, June 5th in Canada, on the other side of Canada in Montreal, they played Ireland, and that was a 1-1 draw on June 5th. So 3 draws out of 4 going into the Cup there. Let's look at formations. We spent a bit more time on this in part 1. We'll just kind of summarize it here, but it's pretty straightforward for Canada. Over their last 11 games, they have used a 4-4-2 formation in 9 of them. That's 82% of the time. So when we analyze that, it is a 2-man central defense all the time. That includes the other 2 formations, which we won't delve into, but 2-man central defense 100% of the time. They have not used a 3-man central defense over the recent period. A single forward. Well, unlike most teams who do favor a single forward, Canada favors a 2-man forward line. We're absolutely delighted with this in Canada that we have the players to do it, because Canada's problem has always been putting the ball in the net. We've been fairly good defensively, but we haven't been blessed with attackers as we are now. And so we're using them a 2-man forward line in 91% of the games there. Let's look at the formations in the recent games to see if they conform with this. Actually, it is a 4-4-2 in all 4 games. So Canada very consistent with that formation. So both March games and both recent friendlies. I'm going to call them the June games there. Oh, they were both in June. Just for easy reference, I'll say the June games. That's it for part 1. We've completed our business. Let's move on to section 1. We're moving on to section 2 then, the main order of business in this Mediacast. And we begin looking at the manager, Jesse Marsch. Well, not dismissed or anything in the lead up to the tournament. Again, if you want to be introduced to these candidates, that's what we did in section 1. Jesse Marsch will consider a successful selection. There, he will lead them through the tournament. All right, we move on to goalkeepers. We have 2 definite candidates, Dane St. Clair and Maxime Crepeau, both of them selected for the squad here. We have none at the likely level. Possible candidate Owen Goodman is the 3rd string keeper coming to this cup. He's a newcomer. That's why his name is in orange. But again, we won't get into introducing players here. We have 4 candidates at the possible level, none of them making even that preliminary squad. Tom McGill, Jonathan Sirios, or Sirois, is probably how it's pronounced, Jaden Hibbert and Luca Gavran. And then seemingly off the squad, James Pantemis also. James Pantemis, not selected. So we have our 3 keepers, St. Clair, Crepeau and Goodman. Let's think about starters here. Well, the previous starter in the past was Milan Borjan. He played his last game for Canada in November 2023. He was the goalkeeper during the 2022 World Cup. Ever since he left, it's really been a toss-up between Maxime Crepeau and Dane St. Clair. Crepeau started the 2024 Copa America, but St. Clair started the 2025 Gold Cup. And then each of them played 3 of the 6 games in the fall friendlies here. So as a Canadian, I know that it's kind of undecided who the starting keeper is there. Let's look at the March games. But I know that they don't really clarify things. We do have Dane St. Clair starting the first game against Iceland, and Crepeau starting the second game against Tunisia. Those are the March games I'm talking about. Actually, in the recent games, it's Crepeau starting both. I actually did think they shared it, so now I'm kind of eating my arrogance there. However, I know at least in the game in Edmonton, St. Clair came in at halftime And I think it is kind of undecided between them. So Crepo does seem to have a bit of an edge there, but I'm still going to go with what I thought before looking at those games, and going to give them an equal chance there. Dane St. Clair, 1 star for a possible starter, and Maxine Crepo, 1 star, both possible starters. Okay, we will move on to defenders, the central defence here, and we have 2 definite candidates, Derek Cornelius and Joel Waterman. Both were selected for the squad there. I'm just finding my spot here. Both of them selected. 2 likely candidates, Moise Bombito and Kamal Miller. And wait a minute, Moise Bombito was an injury concern. I'll talk about that. He had been out with a shin injury coming into the 2025 season in August of 2025. So we thought he had declined, like some of the top players did, to play in the Gold Cup. But looking back, it seems he was injured. He recovered to play 2 games in late September and early October, but then from mid-October he was out again with a lower leg fracture and an unknown return date on there. Now, though, the update is that he's off the injury list. He is still listed as injured up until the last club game for his club on May 29th. But for Canada, after that, he played 31 minutes in the first June friendly. That was here in Edmonton, and was on the bench for the second game. So he seems to be fit to play, but also seems to need a bit of time to build fitness, Moise Bombito. Nevertheless, selected for the squad. So it seems like they believe he will regain that fitness. One of the surprises here is Kamal Miller not selected at all. He was a likely candidate, but not selected. Rather, the 2 possible candidates here were selected, Luc de Fougerolles and Alfie Jones. Both of those selected. Alfie Jones also was an injury concern, out with an ankle injury from late December and an unknown return date. Kind of like Moise Bombito, he is off the injury list, but remained on his club's injury list up until the last game of the season on May 23rd. But again, like Bombito, he played 20 minutes in their first June friendly and was on the bench for the second. So he too seems to be building fitness, but is selected, so seems fit enough. Canada, by the way, plagued with injuries here. I'm going to call it our big injury scare. But most of them have overcome their injuries. That's part of Section 3. We will look at injuries, but I'll also kind of mention them in Section 2. Possible but unlikely candidate, Jamie Knight-Lebel, was selected for the preliminary squad. Only 6 players were selected for that, but didn't make the final cut. And then 3 seemingly off the squad players not making the preliminary squad even. Scott Kennedy, Zach McGraw, and Kyle Hebert. And that's all we have here. No new candidates. So we have 5 central defenders here: Derek Cornelius, Joel Waterman, Moise Bombito, Luc de Fougerolles, and Alfie Jones. Well, judging from that list, you may think that Cornelius and Waterman are the main defenders, but in fact, Moise Bombito and Derek Cornelius are really the starting pair. Bombito was injured for the 2025 Cup and for the fall friendly, so we wouldn't blame anyone to think that he was kind of drifting off the squad. But again, this is like for most teams, I don't have the insider information. But in this case, Canadians know that Moise Bombito is the starter and will be if he's fit. However, his absence has at least allowed Canada to develop some bench strength, and Joel Waterman, Luc de Fougerolles, and recent addition Alfie Jones now stand ready to stand alongside Derek Cornelius if Bombito is not fit to start the cup. Let's take a look at the March games. And here we have actually Joe Waterman and Kamal Miller. Kamal Miller maybe given a bit of a last try there in the March game, first March game. In the second game, it's Joe Waterman and Priso. Priso is actually a central midfielder. So that was a bit of an experimental choice there. In the first game in June, we have our regular pairing of Bombito and Cornelius, what we expect to see in the Cup, what we hope to see if Bombito is fit. In the second game, it is Cornelius and Fusagol. Starting there. So that actually evidence is a bit confusing, but we're fairly clear, at least on the starters. It will definitely be Moise Bombito if he's fit. So we'll give him 3 stars. And Derek Cornelius has been a stalwart. He's definitely a starter too. Whoops, I gave the stars to Waterman there instead of Bombito. If he's not fit, we were kind of thinking Waterman, but now I'm thinking he and Defusol are about evenly matched. And then Alfie Jones is a bit of a wild card. He plays for Middlesbrough, probably the best club affiliation among the 3 of them. So he could be a starter. So we're going to give 1 star to each of them because it might be that Moise Bombito won't be fit to start. Okay. Let's move on to left backs, and we have a definite candidate in Richie Larea, and he is selected for the squad. And he is an injury concern too, another player who overcame injury. So out with a hamstring injury since late April, and at that time it was an unknown return date. But now, amazingly, like the 2 central defenders, he's off the injury list, but remained on the injury list for his club up until the end of the season on May 23rd. However, in his case, fitness doesn't even seem a big concern because he played both of the June friendlies for Canada, 32 minutes in the first and 62 minutes in the second. So Richie Larea seems up to speed here. Our likely candidate was Zorhan Basong. But he was not selected ultimately, just made the preliminary squad there. And next we have Sam Adekugbe, who actually, well, was kind of the starter in this position. He's just been injured and out for so long that that's under question now. He's actually fit at this point. He was injured for the Gold Cup and for the fall friendlies with an Achilles tendon injury, but he did come off the injured list in early May. However, he was not called up for his club team for the rest of the season, and so fitness would be an issue. Also, he's been off the team so long that we're not sure he would be the first selection, and the fact that he was not selected maybe indicates that. So Sam Adekugbe had been possible but unlikely, but again, injuries was most of the reason for that, and he is not selected for the squad. Seemingly off the squad, Raheem Edwards, also not selected. And so it just leaves Richie Larea here as the sole candidate, but that's kind of the story of this position. It's been difficult given the long injury absence of Sam Adekugbe. Canada would probably prefer to use Richie Larea and especially Alphonso Davies, who plays left back for Bayern Munich, further upfield. But Richie Larea has kind of fallen into the position by default. Seems like Zorhan Basong was tried as the right back, but didn't make more than the odd appearance, and as we see, ultimately not selected for the squad. So it falls back on Richie Larea, who actually is capable of playing various positions. and I'm guessing he's probably going to fill the position in the games in 2026. Yes, in all 4 games he starts as the left back, Richie Laria. So we're going to give him 3 stars as the definite starter there. And we move to right backs. Here we have a definite candidate in Alistair Johnson, and also a definite candidate in Nico Sigur. Both of them selected for the squad. Beyond that, we have no likely or possible candidates, but we have 2 at the possible but unlikely level. Neither of them selected even for the preliminary squad. The first one, Zachary Broad-Guillard, and the second one, Jaquiel Marshall-Rutty. So neither of those selected, and nor was seemingly off the squad Dominic Zator. So our 2 candidates then, Alistair Johnson and Nico Sigur. Let's think about the starter there. Well, basically, Alistair Johnson owns the position. However, Johnson has been injured, and I forgot to talk about his injury. I'll come back and do that. Johnson was injured for 2 games of the Gold Cup, 2 of the 4 games, and for all 6 friendlies. So Nico Sigur has been covering all of those games as right back. Again, though, here too, Canada would prefer to use Sigur as a defensive midfielder rather than a right back there. I'll talk about Johnson's injury. He was out with a re-injury of a hamstring muscle since November 2025 and an unknown return date at that time. Blessedly, he returned to action on April 25th and played the last 5 games of the season for his club, and played for all 90 minutes in the last game on May 26th, suggesting he is back to fitness as well. He also played both of the June friendlies for Canada. I don't think he played the full games there, but we can say he's fully recovered from his injury, having played a full game for his club. All right, so we think he is the definite candidate, but let's look at the games. He was out at the time of the March game, so no surprise that Nico Sigur deputized for him there in both games. Johnson, though, back in June, and he was the starter in both of the June games there. So we're going to give actually 3 starts to Alistair Johnson there. We might give Nico Sigur 1 star as a potential starter in the midfield, given that Johnson is back. Okay, so 1 star as defensive midfielder for Nico Sigur. Let's move on to the defensive midfield. No, actually, we're going to begin with the versatile midfielder and star of the team, Alphonso Davies. Injury-prone star of the team, though. He's also the captain of Canada, even though he's just 26 years old. Alphonso Davies was selected for the squad, but is an injury concern. He had been out with a cruciate ligament tear from March to December 2025, but did recover from that. However, he was then out with 2 separate injuries for 4 weeks in late February and in March. He recovered and was fielded in 5 games, but now he's out with a muscle injury from May 9th and an unknown return date. He was named to the squad. The details are not clear. It could be that he's kind of there to support, moral support. But I think they do harbor hopes of him returning to fitness, at least to play some of the games later on, if nothing else. So Alphonso Davies special to us because he comes from right here in Edmonton and, is a star player. So we hope he'll recover in time, but we're not really sure. If he does recover, he really could play any position. As I said, coded as a left back and plays as left back for Bayern Munich. But for Canada, he plays more of a roving role. He usually start maybe as a left midfielder or left attacking midfielder, but he's allowed to kind of roam into the centre and stuff like that. So we think it's a bit of a waste for us to use such a talent as a left back there. So for Canada, he's more of a winger, left winger usually. But he can appear anywhere in the central attacking midfield, perhaps. Okay, on with the show. We do move to defensive midfielders now. We have a definite candidate in Stephen Eustáquio, who was selected. No candidates at the likely or possible level, but again, I would put Nico Sigur as a candidate here. Possible but unlikely candidate, Samuel Piet, not selected for the squad, and seemingly off the squad, Liam Fraser, also not selected. However, we do have a candidate who was selected for the preliminary squad, and that is Ralph Prisso. Ralph Prisso was actually an injury concern, out with a hamstring injury since April 2026, and at the time, an unknown return date. However, in our update, we see he returned for the last club game of the season for the Vancouver Whitecaps there, and did play 16 minutes. So we're not sure if it was a lack of fitness, the reason he was cut, but he kind of was on the edge of selection anyway. So we think it might have been just that he was cut from the squad. So Ralph Prisso coming close there, but not quite making it. That leaves us with just the one defensive midfielder. But before we consider the starters, let's go and look at the central midfielders. Here we have two definite candidates, Ismail Kone and Nathan Saliba, or Nathan Dylan Saliba. Both of those selected for the final squad, as was our likely candidate Matthew Chouanier. Possible candidate and kind of veteran, Junior Hoilett not making the cut this time. And then we go to two seemingly off the squad players also not selected, Mark Anthony Kaye and Victor Loturi. And I should just make clear with Junior Hoilett, because I said didn't make the cut, that makes it sound like he was on the preliminary squad, but he was not. None of those players, Hoilett, Kaye or Loturi, none of them made the preliminary squad. So we have our central midfield then. It's Stephen Eustáquio, Ismail Kone, Nathan Saliba, Matthew Chouanier there. We're thinking about the starters then. Really, it has been it is Stephen Eustáquio and Ismail Kone as the central pairing there. Nathan Saliba did provide good cover for Eustáquio in the Club World Cup fiasco. Again, viewers will know I'm not happy about FIFA supporting club soccer ahead of international soccer as they did with the World Cup. Stephen Eustáquio was supposed to come back after to play for Canada after his club had finished their business in the Cup, but then his club didn't allow it. So again, further enraging people like me. We saw Nico Sigur starting in the midfield, actually in the Gold Cup, when Johnson came back for 2 games in the Gold Cup. So we do know from that Nico Sigur is a potential candidate here. So those players do provide good backup, Matthew Chouanier included. But again, the starters seem to be Ismail Kone and Stephen Eustáquio. Let's see in the March games what we have. Well, I'm looking at the March games, and in some positions it does seem to be backup players. Here it is Saliba and Chouanier, both of those kind of backup players. In the second game in March, it's Ismail Kone along with Saliba. So that kind of suggests that Saliba is kind of the first backup player. In the two June games, we have the pairing we expect, Eustachio and Kone, in both games starting there. And so we're going to give, uh, oh, I'm I'm going to give 3 stars to each of those two players, Ismail Kone and Stephen Eustachio. I do think Saliba particularly will see some field time, maybe even get a start in the cup, but certainly in game one, I think they're going to start with Kone and Eustachio there. Okay, let's move on to the attacking midfield, and we have a complicated situation for left attackers here, but let's begin by introducing the candidates. We have a definite candidate, Jacob Schaffelberg, an injury concern, which I'll tell you about here. He had been out for groin surgery from mid-January 2025, and at the time was expected back in April of 2026. Well, he did return to action on April 4th. However, he only started 2 of the 10 games for his new club, Los Angeles FC there. Only started 2 and was not called up for 3 of them, so not getting a lot of field time there, Jacob Schaffelberg. Anyway, for Canada, definite candidate who was selected for the squad, and we'll talk about kind of starting positions there after we introduce them here. Our likely candidate, Ali Ahmed, is actually coded as a right attacking midfielder, but has been playing over on the left here. We have Jaden Nelson also. He was selected for the preliminary squad, and despite scoring a goal actually in the June friendly here in Edmonton, was not selected for the final squad, didn't make the cut there. We have Liam Miller as a possible candidate who was selected for the squad, but possible but unlikely Stephen Afrifa, not selected at all. Okay, this is a bit complicated. Ali Ahmed has been actually the main starter in this position over the recent period. So again, people looking in from the outside may say, oh, he is seizing the starting position with all of his starts. He started in the Gold Cup, but actually lost the starting position to Jacob Schaffelberg in that cup. However, over the fall friendlies, he started 5 of the 6 games, and there we have it. He can be used in other positions, as you can see, coded as a right attacking midfielder, actually. But to us, he always seemed a bit of a stand-in for the position. Most directly for Schaffelberg, as we saw in the Gold Cup. But Schaffelberg actually isn't much of a starter either. I'm wondering if the manager finds him a bit volatile, like he's very intense, but perhaps also a bit of a card liability as a result. He did get a red card in the Gold Cup there. Liam Miller in the past was ahead of Schaffelberg, or was kind of the starter in the position. He was off the squad for a year, though, but now he has returned. So he may be the starter, but ahead of both of them would be Alphonso Davies, where Canadians prefer to use him, even if it is more of a free roving role for Alberta, as for Alphonso Davies. So injuries really have been the story interfering with all of this. So really the outcome will depend on the fitness of these players. Hard to kind of predict, though, what the order of operations will be there. Okay, let's look at the friendlies there. It's Ali Ahmed in the first game. Again, still, we think deputizing rather than owning the spot. And then in the second game, Marcel Flores, who has his own story coming up as an attacking midfielder, gets the start there. But ultimately, he is off the squad. In the third game, we see Liam Miller returning to the position he once owned as the starter, and in fact he started both of the June games there, suggesting he is the starter. But of course, Alphonse Davies could come in if Alphonse Davies is fit and easily swipe it from him. So there we go, the complex situation on the left attackers. We didn't put Alphonse Davies here because he may appear somewhere else as well. That's why we had him as a versatile midfielder. Let's move over to the right side. This one a lot more straightforward. It's Tajon Buchanan, the definite candidate and the only candidate on the list here. But keeping in mind that Ali Ahmed really is a right attacker, so is probably the backup for this position over here. So Tajon Buchanan does kind of own the position, and it's fairly straightforward. We'll probably give him 3 stars here, but we want to look at the 2026 games here. In the first game, it was Tajon Buchanan, as expected, but he got a red card in that game. So in the second game, it's Liam Miller moving over from the left to the right here. So Ali Ahmed not starting that game, so perhaps he's not the backup in the position. Tajon Buchanan started both of the June games there. We do expect him to start in the Cup. So we're going to give 3 stars for Tajon Buchanan to indicate a definite starter there. And we go to central attackers. Our first candidate here is Jonathan Osorio at the likely level. He was selected for the squad. And then we come to Marcelo Flores, except I think I did not put him on the squad in part 1, which is odd. Marcelo Flores, a possible candidate there. However, out with a cruciate ligament tear since May 30th. Here's the narrative on him. He was actually in the last game of the season for his club, Tigres, in Mexico. They were in the CONCACAF Champions Cup on May 30th, and he subbed into that game at 63 minutes, but got injured and was subbed out at 78. So 15 minutes later, 15 or 16 minutes later. And that is a cruciate ligament tear, pretty long-term injury there. So despite having been named to the squad, he was removed from the squad, and they haven't decided on his replacement yet. That's why there's just 25 players on the Canadian roster. So Marcelo Flores, there was some excitement about him, even though we had him as just a possible candidate. I'm not sure if I introduced him then in part 1. I think, well, there's not much point, but I'll at least tell you why we were excited about him. He was actually with Mexico, actually on the roster for Mexico's Copa America 2024 team. Fortunately, he didn't play any minutes in that. Otherwise, he would lose his eligibility for Canada. But he moved over to Canada, and since 2026, he has 2 caps for us. He had 3 caps for Mexico, actually, in 2021-22, but didn't play in an official game. It was friendlies and stuff like that. So again, retained his ability to play for Canada. He plays for Tigres in Mexico and was with Arsenal in England in 2022-2023. He was loaned out by Arsenal, was with Arsenal's youth club as well. So a very good resume there. So we're very sad to lose Marcelo Flores. By the way, he didn't play any games for Arsenal's senior team there. Okay, so Marcelo Flores, unfortunately not going to be part of the squad here. Jonathan Osorio, more of a substitute. As you saw, Canada uses a 4-4-2 formation. That's probably the 2 central midfielders in the middle rather than an attacking midfielder. And Jonathan Osorio is more of a substitute. So we don't even need to review the position here because it's not used. Okay, on we go to forwards, and no Canadian players coded as secondary strikers, but quite a few coded as forwards here. So our two definite candidates, Jonathan David and Tani Oluwaseyi, both of those selected for the final squad. Likely candidate Kyle Larin also selected. And then we had three candidates at the possible level, Theo Bair, Daniel Jebison, and Jason Russell Rowe. I should go through this a little slower. Theo Bair not selected for the squad, even the preliminary squad, but the other two were selected for the preliminary squad, Daniel Jebison and Jason Russell Rowe. However, neither of them made it. Now, there is a chance of one of these, or probably one of these cut players, not these two, but one of the six who were cut, who will come in for Marcelo Flores there. Personally, I think it might be the goal scorer in Edmonton here. I'll just pop back to him, Jaden Nelson. There, but we'll have to see. Possible but unlikely candidate, Charles Andreas Brim, always on the edge of the team here, not making the squad there, and neither the two seemingly off the squad players, Theo Corbineau, who was an injury concern anyway. He has recovered from the injury, but we won't go into detail because he was is off the squad and not selected. And Ike Ugbu also not selected for the squad. We have a new candidate, or a couple of new candidates actually. One of them making the squad. It's Promise David. No relation to Jonathan David there. Promise David was an injury concern, like so many of the Canadian players were, out for surgery from early March 2026, and at the time expected back on June 1st. Pretty much true. He remained on the injury list up until his club's last game of the season on May 24th. His club is Union Saint-Gilloise in Belgium. Nevertheless, despite that, he did play in both of the June friendlies for Canada, 20 minutes in the first and 17 minutes in the second. That may mean he's not back up to fitness. That kind of stands to reason. But Promise David selected for the squad, and so we assume they think he will regain his fitness. The other player made the preliminary squad. It's Arabin Pebble made the preliminary squad, but not the final cut there. So we have three forwards there making the preliminary squad, or actually four, and David Promise going on to make the final squad there. Let's talk about starters in this position. As we've seen, Canada, one of the few teams to regularly use two forwards here. Jonathan David is always one of them. It was Kyle Larin in the past, but injuries and form have kind of opened the door for Tani Oluwaseyi as the more recent partner for Jonathan David. But really, we need to see the recent games to see if Oluwaseyi seems to be taking the position, or whether Kyle Larin, if he returns from injury, will take the position back. Promise David more of a substitute for sure. In the first game in March, it was Larin and David, but in the second game, Oluwaseyi and David. I should be clear, that's Jonathan David starting both of those games. In the recent June friendlies, it is the partnership of Jonathan David and Kyle Larin in both games. So it does seem like Kyle Larin is retaining the starting position there. And so let's predict our starters. Well, Jonathan David is an easy one. He's a definite starter. I guess we would have to give 2 stars to Kyle Larin as the likely starter, and 1 star to Tani Oluwase as the possible starter. All right, that brings us to the end of our look at the squad, and we move on to section 3. My graphics are off there. Okay, there we are. We're moving on to the Spotlight Review. Moving into section 3, want to welcome listeners to the short version of the Mediacast here. The Spotlight Review is a race through the squad, basically reviewing what we covered in section 2, but at 10 times the pace with none of the details. In fact, if you want to introduce the players, be introduced to the players, that's what part 1 is still good for. Here we go with the manager, Jesse March, not dismissed, so we'll consider him a successful candidate here. On to goalkeepers, our 2 definite goalkeepers, Dane St. Clair and Maxime Crepeau, both selected for the World Cup here, as well as possible candidate and newcomer Owen Goodman. We're not going to talk about players at the possible but unlikely level, seemingly off the squad, or even new players unless they were selected at least for the preliminary squad. In terms of starters, we think it's still an even bet between Maxime Crepeau and Dane St. Clair. Maxime Crepeau perhaps slightly edging it there, having started both of the recent friendlies. Let's move on to central defenders. There are 2 definite candidates, Derek Cornelius and Joel Waterman, both selected. Likely candidate Moise Bombito, overcoming injury and is selected. However, our other likely candidate, Kamal Miller, not making the squad. But our 2 possible candidates did, Luc de Fougerolles and Alfie Jones, both selected. In terms of starters, we think Derek Cornelius is a definite starter. Moise Bombito also a definite starter, but it depends on fitness. And for that reason, we give Joel Waterman and Luc de Fougerolles and Alfie Jones kind of an interesting question as to who is the main backup there. We give them all 1 star as possible starters. We consider them fairly even candidates there. Okay, over to left back. We have definite candidate Richie Larea selected for the squad, but likely candidate Zorhan Bassong not selected. We think Richie Larea is the definite starter in this position. Over to right back, we have 2 definite candidates, Alistair Johnson and Nico Sigur. We think that's all we have over here, by the way. Alistair Johnson, a definite candidate. Nico Sigur actually has been covering for him while he was away injured, but Sigur is more of a defensive midfielder. We think he's actually more likely to start in the midfield unless Johnson is unavailable there. So we give Sigur as 1 star, a possible starter in the midfield. Moving up to the midfield, well, we're going to start with the versatile Alphonso Davies. Plays left back for Bayern Munich, but used more of an attacking role for Canada. He's the captain of the team. Probably favors the left side there, but he might appear in any position, and he's kind of free to roam when he's on the field. So Alphonso Davies, a definite candidate. Would be a definite starter. He's really been struggling with injuries, so we're not sure. If he is fit, is a definite starter, but it depends on fitness. Defensive midfielders, we have a definite candidate in Stephen Eustachio, and that's all we have at the possible level or above. But we do have a newcomer, Ralph Priso. Ralph Priso made the preliminary squad, but not the final cut. 6 players cut from the preliminary squad there. For central midfielders, we have 2 definite candidates, Ismail Kone and Nathan Salaba, and then likely candidate Matthew Chouanier. All of those are selected for the squad. However, possible candidate Julia Hoylett not making it this time. So for starters among defensive and central midfielders, we think Stephen Eustachio and Ismail Kone are both definite starters. The other one's capable backup, but we don't see them starting unless there's injury, which there isn't with these two players. Let's move up to the attacking midfield, the left attackers, and a very complex situation we talked about in section 2 here. Ultimately, a definite candidate, Jacob Schaffelberg, was selected, as was likely candidate Ali Ahmed. But the other likely candidate, Jayden Nelson, not selected. Possible candidate, Liam Miller, was selected, kind of making a comeback into the squad there. And then very difficult to predict the starter over here. I don't know if we actually put our stars. I'm not going to make a prediction because Alphonse Davies is also a candidate here. But the pecking order does seem to be Liam Miller, at least regaining the spot over here. So we would put him ahead of Schaffelberg and Ali Ahmed. I think they're kind of even bets if Liam Miller is not the starter. I would put Jacob Schaffelberg a little bit ahead because Ali Ahmed is not really a left midfielder. He's been deputizing. I don't want to get into the whole story again. Let's go over to right attackers. The only candidate we have on the list here is Tajon Buchanan, and we consider him a definite starter. The central attackers, they really don't use the position, so likely candidate Jonathan Osorio is selected, but he's more of a substitute. And then possible candidate Marcelo Flores, who we were all excited about, ends up being injured in the last game of the season for his club and unavailable for Canada. So that's too bad. He will have to be replaced, and it'll probably be one of the preliminary squad players that we've mentioned here. So one of them probably will be added back in. Let's go on to forwards. Two definite candidates in Jonathan David and Tani Oluwaseyi. Both of them selected for the squad, as was likely candidate Kyle Larin. We had three possible candidates, and two of them made it to the preliminary squad at least, but then didn't make it beyond there. Daniel Jebison and Jason Russell-Rowe. And then we have a new candidate, Promise David, who was selected for the final squad. And the other candidate, the other new candidate, Ariban Pebble, making the preliminary squad at least, but not making the final cut. In terms of starters, Canada often uses two forwards, almost always, in fact. So Jonathan David is definitely one of them. And then it was a bit of a uncertainty between Kyle Larin and Tani Oluwaseyi, but Kyle Larin seems to be kind of resuming his position there. We think we give him 2 stars as the likely starter, and Oluwaseyi 1 star as a possible starter there. All right, that is it. I don't know what I have this information on the screen for. Oh, I see. Okay. We're moving on to the next part. My graphics are all messed up here. We are going to talk about surprises first. Then we'll talk about big names off the squad, which my graphics are showing there. Surprises are... first of all, the notable non-selections. The first one, central defender Kamal Miller. We had him as a likely candidate, but he did not make the cut. There's a bit of a story behind that. I won't get into it too much, but we think some of the players who were selected were kind of slowly creeping up and becoming kind of more likely than him. So we're not really shocked that Kamal Miller didn't make it. Next, we have unexpected inclusions. So any players at the seemingly off the squad or possible but unlikely level would fit this category. Jamie Knight-Labelle was possible but unlikely central defender, but he did make the preliminary squad at least. Just a 34-man preliminary squad, so that's coming pretty close. And then new players, just the one that we saw right at the end here, David Promise. He's the only one to actually make this. Oh, make the squad. I keep saying David Promise, but it's Promise David. Apologies there. Now we do get the big names off the squad, and we did have three names in part one that we mentioned. Milan Borjan, the goalie, Lucas Cavallini, the forward, and central defender Stephen Vittoria. We won't give details because we did that in part one, but we do have a few new names now, players who didn't make the squad. So the first one is Junior Hoylett. I'll just briefly say, with Canada since 2015, 69 caps and 17 goals, and is now 36 years old. He's always kind of been the heart of the club, well liked, or of the national team, well liked, but aging, as you can see. Has been part of many tournaments, as all of these players will have been. We won't go through them. But actually, he was injured for the Copa America, despite being a likely candidate, and then didn't make the cut for the 2025 Gold Cup. So ultimately, the 2023 Gold Cup was his last tournament for the national team. His last game for the national team was... well, he was a possible candidate for this cup, so he did play during this period. So his last game will be probably sometime in the fall of 2025 there. Next is Samuel Piette, really a long-standing soldier for Canada since 2012 with 70 caps, and is now 32 years old. More of a substitute, a bit of a starter in the early years, more of a substitute as time went on. Copa America 2024, his last tournament, and didn't see any action in that tournament. But Samuel Piette, always standing by, ready to jump in to the fray. Okay, those are our two big names off the squad. We go to injuries. Now, Canada really had an injury panic really about March, April, with some of our top players injured. We're already miserable about Alphonso Davies being quite injury prone, and now coming into this cup with an injury concern. But there were many more, and I'm not sure I want to go into too much detail as we did in section 2, so I think I'll just make it a bit faster. At the end of part 1, we had the following candidates who I'll update. Alistair Johnson is fit again and is recovered from injury. He has played full games since there. Moise Bombito is fit and selected for the squad, like Alistair Johnson, but we're not really sure about his fitness. We think he may need a couple of games at least, and it may be maybe even an injury doubt in general. Next, we have Alfie Jones, who also recovered from injury and was selected for the squad. We will say that he maybe needs a bit of time to build fitness as well. Theo Corbineau, well, he was seemingly off the squad player. He did recover from injury, but was never a strong candidate. And poor Sam Adekupe actually has recovered from injury, but he's been so long injured for Canada that he's basically lost his standing with Canada. He probably have to prove himself again to get back onto the team, and wouldn't have had time to do it so far. I do hope to see him again, though, because he's been very unlucky with injury. Added to that, we had a whole bunch of new injuries. These I will give more detail on. Alphonso Davies had been out with a cruciate ligament tear from March to December 2025. That's 9 months there. But we were delighted when he recovered. However, he was then out with two separate injuries for 4 weeks in late February and March. But he recovered and was fielded for 5 games for Bayern Munich. But then on May 9th, he was out with a muscle injury and an unknown return date. He is named to the final squad. We don't know to what extent that indicates recovery. We're really not sure, so we'll probably have to wait till the Cup. We did agree with Canada's decision not to play him during the friendlies. I think he might have actually. No, I think he came onto the field in Edmonton and kind of waved at us. I had heard he was back in Bayern Munich, which would have been the best place for him to recover in Munich there. But anyway, it's kind of up in the air. We're going to just put him as an injury doubt here. Okay, next we have Richie Laraya, also a new injury, out with a hamstring injury since late April 2026 and an unknown return date. He was on the injury list right up until the last day with his club, is their last game on May 23rd. However, he's off the injury list and came back and played in both June friendlies for Canada, 32 minutes in one and 62 minutes in the other. So actually, fitness doesn't even seem an issue for the engine that is Richie Laraya. He seems recovered from injury. Thank goodness all of these top players at least selected to the squad. Promise David, similarly, out for surgery from early March, but had been expected back on June 1st, and that turned out to be the case. He also remained on the injury list for his club right up until the end of the season on May 24th. But like Richie Laraya, played both June friendlies for Canada, in his case 20 minutes and 17 minutes. So still maybe building towards fitness there, Promise David, but looking good. Jacob Schaffelberg, out for groin injury since mid-January 2025, had been expected back in April 2026 and did return to action on April 4th. However, he only started 2 games for his new club, Los Angeles FC, and was not called up for 3 of them, so he hasn't seen that much field time. Nevertheless, he is fully recovered, Jacob Schaffelberg. Promise David, we did. And finally, Marcelo Flores, we were all excited about the Mexican Canadian. We talked about him a lot in part 2. He was injured in the last game for his club, last game of the season, the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Came in as a sub but got injured and was pulled out 15 or 16 minutes later. And now he is off the Canadian squad, dropped due to injury. His replacement, though, has not been named yet. And that brings us to the end. So you can understand how nervous we were as Canadians with all of those players on the injury list in about April. But we're very thankful to have them back. I know this has been a bit of a unobjective thing. I clearly favour Canada here. I'm moving into closing thoughts here. So I apologise if that's irritating, but we're just very excited because we've never had a team really anything like this, especially with the attacking prowess that Canada has. For that reason, they often use a 4-4-2 formation to take advantage of those attackers. So we're really hoping to get past the group stage this time. We think it's quite possible. We think we were fairly lucky that, no insult to Bosnia and Herzegovina, but it could have been Italy in the group with us here. So we think things worked out to give us a good chance of passing the group stage, and we hope that happens. Okay, I do have actually some Mediacast information that I'm mentioning in the other Mediacast, but I think this one has been a little long, so I'm going to forego that and move right to the conclusion here. The International Soccer Preview. That is our look at part 2 of Canada, and we are doing every other team. I will be a little more objective probably about those teams. We'll see you next time.
We would like to thank Michael Foster and Pixabay for the wonderful music in this Mediacast. The title of the piece used is Look to the Sky, Tribal Dance Beats Native American.